My dearest Lizzie, I find myself very unwell this morning, which I suppose is to be imputed to my getting wet through yesterday. My kind friends will not hear of my returning home until I am better. They insist on me seeing Mr. Jones. Therefore, do not be alarmed if you should hear of his having been to me. And excepting a sore throat and headache, there's not much the matter with me. Yours, etc.
Well, my dear, if your daughter should have a dangerous fit of illness, if she should die, know that it was all in pursuit of Mr. Bingley.
Oh, I'm not at all afraid of her dying. People do not die of trifling little colds. She will be well taken care of. She'll be fine as long as she stays there. I would be able to visit her if I could have the carriage.
I will walk to Netherfield and visit Jane.
How could you be so silly as to think of such a thing in all this dirt? You will not be fit to see when you get there.
I shall be very fit to see Jane, which is all I want.
Is this a hint for me, Lizzie? To send the horses?
No, indeed. I do not wish to avoid the walk. The distance is nothing when one has a motive. It is only 3 miles. I shall be back by dinner.
I admire the activity of your benevolence, but every impulse of feeling should be guided by reason, and in my opinion, exertion should always be in proportion to what is required.
We will go as far as Meryton with you.
If we make haste, perhaps we may see something of Captain Carter before he goes.
She has a violent cold. You must endeavour to get the better of it. Return to bed. I shall give you some draughts.
Shall I call a carriage?
Lizzie, do not part with me.
Then please, remain at Netherfield for the present.
I shall, thank you.
Go to Longbourn and acquaint the family with Elizabeth's day, and bring back a supply of clothes.
How is her health?
Jane is by no means better.
I'm very grieved. It is shocking to have such a bad cold.
I dislike being ill myself.
Her manners are very bad indeed. A mixture of pride and impertinence. She has no conversation, no style, no taste, no beauty.
She has nothing, in short, to recommend her but being an excellent walker. I shall never forget her appearance this morning. She really looked almost wild.
She did indeed, Louisa. I could hardly keep my countenance. Very nonsensical to come at all. Why must she be scampering about the country because her sister had a cold? Her hair so untidy, so blowsy.
Yes, and her petticoat. I hope you saw her petticoat. 6 inches deep in mud, I am absolutely certain. And the gown which had been let down to hide it, not doing its office.
Your picture may be very exact, Louisa, but this is all lost upon me. I thought Miss Elizabeth Bennet looked remarkably well this morning. Her dirty petticoat quite escaped my notice.
You observed it, Mr. Darcy, I am sure, and I am inclined to think that you would not wish to see your sister make such an exhibition.
Certainly not.
To walk 3 miles, or 4 miles, or 5 miles, whatever it is, above her ankles in dirt and alone, quite alone. What could she mean by it? Seems to me to show an abominable sort of conceited independence, most country town indifference to decorum.
It shows an affection for her sister that is very pleasing.
I'm afraid, Mr. Darcy, that this adventure has rather affected your admiration for her fine eyes.
Not at all. They were brightened by the exercise.
I've an excessive regard for Jane Bennet. She's really a very sweet girl, and I wish with all my heart that she were well settled. But with such a father and mother, and such low connections, I am afraid there is no chance of it.
I think I have heard you say that their uncle was an attorney at Meryton.
Yes, and they have another, who lives somewhere near Cheapside.
That is capital.
If they had uncles enough to fill all of Cheapside, it would not make them one jot less agreeable.
But it must very materially lessen their chance of marrying men with any consideration in the world.
Yes.
I must agree.
Will you be joining us, Miss Bennet?
I cannot. My sister may need me. I shall amuse myself for the short time I can stay below with a book.
Do you prefer reading to cards? That's rather singular.
Miss Eliza Bennet despises cards. She is a great reader and has no pleasure in anything else.
I deserve neither such praise nor such censure. I'm not a great reader, and I have pleasure in many things.
In nursing your sister, I am sure you have pleasure, and I hope it will greatly be increased by seeing her quite well.
I thank you from my heart.
Allow me to fetch you all that my library affords, and I wish my collection were larger for your benefit and my own credit. But I am an idle fellow, and though I have not many, I have more than I will ever look into.
I assure you, I can suit myself with these.
I'm astonished that my father should have left so small a collection of books. What a delightful library you have at Pemberley, Mr. Darcy.
It ought to be good. It's been the work of many generations.
And then you have added so much to it yourself. You are always buying books.
I cannot comprehend the neglect of a family library in such days as these.
Neglect? I am sure you neglect nothing that could add to the beauties of that noble place. Charles, when you build your house, I hope it may be half as delightful as Pemberley.
I wish it may.
But I would really advise you to make your purchase in that neighbourhood, and take Pemberley for a kind of model. There's not a finer county in England than Derbyshire.
With all my heart, I'll buy Pemberley if Darcy will sell it.
I am talking of possibilities, Charles.
Upon my word, Caroline, I should think it more possible to get Pemberley by purchase than by imitation.
Is Miss Darcy much grown since the spring? Will she be as tall as I am?
I think so. She's now about Miss Elizabeth Bennet's height, or rather taller.
How I long to see her again. I never met with anybody who delighted me so much. Such countenance, such manners, and so extremely accomplished for her age. Her performance on the pianoforte is exquisite.
It is amazing to me how young ladies have patience to be so very accomplished, as they all are.
All young ladies accomplished? My dear Charles, what do you mean?
Yes, all of them, I think. They all paint tables, cover screens, and net purses. I scarcely know anyone who cannot do all this, and I am sure I never heard a young lady spoken of for the first time without being informed that she was very accomplished.
Your list of the common extent of accomplishments has too much truth. The word is applied to many a woman who deserves it no otherwise than by netting a purse or covering a screen. But I am very far from agreeing with you in your estimation of ladies in general. I cannot boast of knowing more than half a dozen in the whole range of my acquaintance that are really accomplished.
Nor I am sure.
Then you must comprehend a great deal in your idea of an accomplished woman.
Yes, I do comprehend a great deal in it.
Oh, certainly. No one can be really esteemed accomplished who does not greatly surpass what is met with. A woman must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing, dancing, and the modern languages to deserve the word. And besides all this, she must possess a certain something in her air and manner of walking, the tone of her voice, her dress and expressions, or the word will be but half deserved.
All this she must possess, and to all this she must yet add something more substantial, in the improvement of her mind by extensive reading.
I'm no longer surprised at your knowing only 6 accomplished women. I rather wonder now at your knowing any.
Are you so severe upon your own sex as to doubt the possibility of this all?
I never saw such a woman. I never saw such capacity and taste and application and elegance as you describe united.
How unjust!
I know many women who answer this description.
Yes, many indeed. Ladies, please, you're paying no attention to the game.
Eliza Bennet is one of those young ladies who seek to recommend themselves to the other sex by undervaluing their own. And with many men, I dare say it succeeds. But in my opinion, it is a paltry device, a very mean art.
Undoubtedly there is meanness in all the arts which ladies sometimes condescend to employ for captivation. Whatever bears affinity to cunning is despicable.
Jane is worse, and I cannot leave her.
Mr. Jones must be sent for immediately.
I recommend an express to town, where she may be treated by one of the most eminent physicians.
I will not hear of it. I'm willing to have Mr. Jones sit for in the morning if Jane is not decidedly better.
We are both miserable.
See to it that every possible attention might be paid to Miss Bennet and her sister.
I was sent by Miss Bingley to inquire about your sister's health.
She's better now than she was before.
How is Miss Bennet?
Yes, how is she? She has improved. However, I would like to request that a note be sent to Longbourn, that my mother may form her own judgment of the situation.
Mamma, I think it was time I was carried home.
Absolutely not.
I do not think it at all advisable.
Mrs. Bennet, I came to invite you and your daughters to join me in the breakfast parlour.
I hope you have not found Miss Bennet worse than you have expected.
Indeed I have, sir. She's a great deal too ill to be moved. Mr. Jones says we must not think of moving her. We must trespass a little on your kindness.
Removed? It must not be thought of. My sister, I am sure, will not hear about her move.
You may depend upon it, madam, that Miss Bennet shall receive every possible attention while she remains with us.
I am sure if it were not for such good friends, I do not know what would become of her, for she is very ill indeed, and suffers a vast deal, though with the greatest patience in the world, which is always the way with her, for she has, without exception, the sweetest temper I ever met with. I often tell my other girls they are nothing compared to her. You have a sweet room here, Mr. Bingley, and a charming prospect over that gravel walk. I do not know of a place in the country that is equal to Netherfield. You will not think of quitting it in a hurry, I hope, though you have but a short lease.
Whatever I do is done in a hurry, and therefore, if I should resolve to quit Netherfield, I should probably be off in 5 minutes. At present, however, I consider myself as quite fixed here.
That is exactly what I should have supposed of you.
You begin to comprehend me, do you?
Oh yes, I understand you perfectly.
I wish I might take this for a compliment, but to be so easily seen through, I am afraid, is pitiful.
That is as it happens. It does not necessarily follow that a deep, intricate character is more or less estimable than such a one as yours.
Lizzie, remember where you are and do not run on in a wild manner as you are suffered to do at home.
I did not know you were a studier of character. It must be an amusing study.
Yes, but intricate characters are the most amusing.
The country can, in general, supply but few subjects for such a study. In a country neighbourhood, you move in a very confined and unvarying society.
But people themselves alter so much that there is something new to be observed in them forever.
Yes, indeed. I can assure you there is quite as much of that going on in the country as in town. not see that London has any great advantage over the country for my part, except for the shops and public places. The country is a vast deal pleasanter, is it not, Mr. Bingley?
When I am in the country, I never wish to leave it. And when I am in town, it's pretty much the same. They have each their advantages, and I can be equally happy in either.
Aye, that's because you have the right disposition, but that gentleman seemed to think that the country was nothing at all.
Indeed, Mamma, you are mistaken. You quite mistook Mr. Darcy. He only meant that there were not such a variety of people to be met in the country as in town, which you must acknowledge to be true.
Certainly, my dear, nobody ever said there were. But as to meeting with few people in this neighborhood, there are few neighborhoods larger. I know we dine with 24 families.
Has Charlotte Lucas been at Longbourn since my coming away?
Yes, she called yesterday with her father. What an agreeable man Sir William is, Mr. Bingley, is not he? So much the man of fashion, so genteel and so easy. He has always something to say to everybody. That is my idea of good breeding. And persons who fancy themselves very important and never open their mouths quite mistake the matter.
Did Charlotte dine with you?
No, she would go home. I fancy she was wanted about the mince pies. For my part, Mr. Bingley, I always keep servants that can do their own work. My daughters are brought up differently. But everybody is to judge for themselves, and the Lucases are very good sort of girls, I assure you. It is a pity they are not handsome. Not that I think Charlotte so very plain, but then she is our particular friend.
She seems a very pleasant young woman.
Oh, dear, yes, but you must own she's very plain. Lady Lucas herself has often said so, and envied my Jane's beauty. I do not like to boast of my own child, but to be sure, Jane, one does not often see anybody better looking. It is what everybody says. I do not trust my own partiality. When she was only 15, there was a gentleman at my brother Gardiner's in town, so much in love with her, that my sister-in-law was sure he would make her an offer before he came away. But however, he did not. Perhaps he thought her too young. However, he wrote some verses on her, and very pretty they were.
And so ended his affection. There has been many a one, I fancy, overcome in the same way. I wonder who first discovered the efficacy of poetry in driving away love.
I had been used to consider poetry as the food of love.
Of a fine, stout, healthy love it may. Everything nourishes what is strong already. But if it be only a slight, thin sort of inclination, I'm convinced that one good sonnet will starve it entirely away.